Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live Friday morning, July 19th. It is the second July live evaluation period for Division One coaches to get out on the road, evaluate talent, evaluate prospects and recruits. And there is no bigger name in the business than John Calipari when it comes to high school recruiting this time of year, again, July. Really, this is the second and final of the live evaluation periods in July. There's one more, but it's not related to high school recruiting. It really doesn't have much of an impact on recruiting. So this is really it. And it's also been a dead period for visits. So that veil is lifted the first day of August through the 5th. You get a 5-day window to have any potential visitors come on campus for official visits or unofficial visits. And then you've got a 2-week dead period, the 6th of August, excuse me, through the 20th, and then a 10-day window, August 21st through the 31st, where it goes back to being a quiet period, and that means on-campus visitors can come in again. So August is what you're looking ahead to, but we pump the brakes on that just a little bit because we've got more live eval. Last weekend, this time a week ago, basically, started the first July live eval session. It was a 4-day window, the 11th through the 14th, and Calipari and his staff got on the road, multiple events across the country, shoe circuit events, and other live eval events to look at high school recruits. What emerged from that were a few offers and some updates on visits. So we're going to get into all of that today as we look ahead to this live eval period, which started today. And again, you've got multiple Razorback targets participating. The big event, Nike Peach Jam out in North Augusta, South Carolina, is where Arkansas staff will be mostly concentrated as we move weekend. Again, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday live eval session. So let's kind of recap what we've been talking about the last few weeks. This is going to be the brief part of this. First of all, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. What we always do on the front end and maybe a bit later, ask you to go hit subscribe, like, and share the content we provide. What you do to help us there is mutually beneficial. But jumping right into it, Darius Acuff Jr., the class of 2025. Hello from Brisbane, Australia. Thank you for joining me, Razorback Rick from Australia. That's cool. Really, the first thing I want to talk about, something we've been hitting on for a while, 2025 5-star national number 4 ranked player in the country, Darius Acuff Jr. out of Detroit, plays at IMG Academy, plays for 17 and under the family on the Nike circuit. So he'll be part of the Peach Jam weekend. He's got a game this evening at 6:30. John Calipari was courtside for, I think there were 3 of them last weekend during that live eval section of Peach Jam. And expect that again. I've been reporting on this segment or previous versions of this segment that not only was Arkansas the leader, but eventually we got a time frame that I was able to break. That it would be shortly after Peach Jam, sometime soon after Peach Jam, that Acuff would make an announcement. The last time I was on here last week, I reported that I was told that Acuff is privately committed to Calipari in Arkansas. So we'll see where that goes. Since I was last on, Joe Tipton with On3 Sports put out an updated top list for Acuff. It was Arkansas, Kansas, Michigan, and UConn. UConn's the location where he most recently visited, going back to June, that Acuff. But UConn's off the list, so it's down to those 3 again. I believe it's all Arkansas. I've thought that for a while. And we could hear an announcement as soon as the conclusion of Peach Jam, which is Sunday, the 21st. This last eval period for high school recruiting today, Saturday, and Sunday also concludes Peach Jam. And so it could come anytime after that, the following week. Maybe it's sometime in August, but it's upcoming with Acuff, and it looks like all signs point to Arkansas. Another player, another 5-star, another top 5 ranked 5-star in that 2025 class that Acuff has been talking to, and we brought you this intel spread it out over the last couple of episodes of HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Is Caleb Wilson, the 6'9" combo forward out of Atlanta. He's been in discussion with Acuff about, they've talked about actually playing together at the next level in college. And we'll see where that goes. But Wilson's planning. He told me he thinks Acuff's going to Arkansas, but he also told me he's taking a visit to Arkansas among 5 school visits that he has planned: Georgia Tech, Oregon, Tennessee, and Duke, and Arkansas in the fall during football season sometime. So we'll see when that gets scheduled, when it's for. Go Hogs. I'm Razorback Rick in Brisbane, Australia has got things to say today. Okay, this morning. So Wilson, we kind of recap some important stuff there with a couple of those 5-star. Now Wilson plays with Night Riders Elite with the Boozer twins on the same Nike circuit. In fact, they played. They should be tipping off right about now in their first game of the weekend, and so it's a team it's been unbeaten so far through the week, 4 or 5 games so far on that in the Peach Jam, so undefeated team. But Wilson again, we talk about Acuff and Wilson. Maybe there's something to keep an eye on there. I wanted to hit those first to get it out of the way to really talk about what kind of emerged as far as new information going back to last live eval period last weekend, moving into this weekend. Malachi Marino, let's start with him, class of 2025. He's on that borderline of being a 5-star. I think he'll be an All-American, national number 25 ranked, so he's right there. Interesting prospect, 7-footer out of Kentucky, Georgetown, Kentucky. Again, a 7-footer, not on the Nike EYBL circuit. He wrapped up play on the Adidas 3SSB Summer Championships, getting his Indiana Elite 17 and under team all the way to the finals. And he's had Arkansas on his final 8 list, but he's also got some visits hammered out to 5 schools, including Arkansas. Now, the in-state schools, Kentucky and Louisville, are thought to be the leaders there, but Calipari's been recruiting this young man for a while. I've mentioned his name before, going back weeks, as somebody to keep a potential eye on. Things have been a little bit, not so quiet anymore, and I've been able to confirm that he's got a visit scheduled. Kentucky and Louisville are among the 5 schools he's going to visit, but so is Arkansas. And he's got a visit scheduled to Fayetteville toward the end of his visits. I think the 4th of 5 visits, but I think and the dates are October 4th through 6th. So October 5th is a Saturday. That's when Arkansas will host Tennessee in a football game in Fayetteville. And so this visit will take place when school's fully back and you get to see the campus life, the fan and crowd situation and environment going to a football game. He'll certainly do that. And I also expect him to attend Arkansas basketball practice while on his visit. Remember, Arkansas's into limited practices. That started when players really moved on to campus, and all that started to happen in early June when summer session 1 started. So we go back to Acuff, just as a reminder, he took his visit, the first high school visitor, back in May. He didn't get that opportunity. He was on campus on May 10th. So the next, whoever actually makes it to campus next, we're hearing about some of these fall visits with Wilson. Don't have a specific date, but it'll be during football season in the fall. Malachi Marino now October 4th through 6th, if that happens, certainly into your fall semester and during a football game. But once you get into some of these potential August visits, even though football season hasn't started, if Arkansas squeezes in visitors, say early August or late August, I went through those dates. There's a 2-week dead period there in August. Then they won't have football games to go to, but they could attend the limited practices. So that's always something that's part of these visits once you get a little bit later into where we are now in terms of, because you want to show players as much as you can, visitors, prospects. If your school's not fully in session, they don't get everything. They don't have the football game and you're not in basketball season. They don't get the game experience. But at least practice, limited practice, you can get them on court watching some of that. So that's important. But Malachi Marino obviously has an Arkansas visit. It looks like, I still think Arkansas would be a bit of a long shot. If Calipari's ever a long shot in recruiting, I don't know. But, there's a lot of pressure, I'm sure, on Marino to stay in state. Of course, he's got his pick of the litter. And we'll see if Arkansas and Calipari can lure him from the home state of Kentucky to Fayetteville. Calipari has a rich history, so does Kenny Payne, in tandem of recruiting, landing, and then developing big men for the next level. So it'd be very interesting to see, does Arkansas have something there to convince Malachi Marino to be a Razorback? Another class of 2025 player, national top 50-ish ranked 4-star. This actually surprised me a little bit. Not that he's not worthy, but I just didn't necessarily see this coming. Isaiah Seeley out of Springdale, Arkansas, Team FAD 17U, one of the better Nike EYBL teams on that circuit, which is the best circuit, has picked up an Arkansas offer since we last were on. Spoke with John Calipari. I got interviewed Seeley, and he was excited to get the offer. Obviously, he's got other high major offers, but he was coming off a really good weekend. The previous weekend during the live eval part, he opened up Nike Peach Jam play with a double-double. 17 points, 11 rebounds. Arkansas coaches on hand to see him in Team Thad. And one of his teammates previously at Springdale High, and he had moved on, another class 2025 4-star, Cortland Mulger, a 6'3" guard. Seeley's a 6'7" combo guard, can play the 1, 2, or 3. But Mulger is also teaming up on that Team Thad. He's been in contact over the last couple of weeks a lot with assistant coach Chuck Martin. He reported an Arkansas offer, had not spoken to Calipari at that point. But either way, you've got a couple of in-state kids from the Northwest Arkansas area that Arkansas is showing a lot of interest in that class of 2025. Both of them 4-stars again. So look for these guys. They also have games today. They play here in about 2 hours, and at the Nike Peach Jam with Team 17 and under Team Thad. So Seeley told me that he's Calipari had expressed that he wants him to get on campus for a visit. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Obviously, it could happen as soon as August at the end of Peach Jam. Sometime in those 2 windows in August, you've got a total of about half the month that's broken up by that 2-week dead period. But you've got about 15 days or so to figure out a time to visit in August if you want to do that. Maybe it comes at a later date, but Seeley has an Arkansas offer. He's the first player I know of in-state to get an offer from John Calipari. So it's very likely still could be a process where they want to see him more, get a visit before it's committable. Maybe it's a committable offer, but again, it's an in-state kid and it's from the class of 2025. So these are new developments since the last live period. I mentioned Malachi Marino. He led 17 and under Indiana Elite on the Adidas 3SB Summer Championship circuit to the championship game where they lost in the finals. But his teammate, Braylon Mullins, a 6'5" sharpshooter, really had a 6 of 11 shooting game with John Calipari courtside watching him last weekend. It was Friday of last week, so a week ago today. And he ended up getting an Arkansas offer. So he's got 8 visits that he's putting together, and Arkansas is going to be one of them. Don't have a date on that yet, but again, he's a top 25 rated guy, similar to Malachi Marino. Both of them are in the top 25 and one of the national recruiting service. So we'll see if Arkansas is trying to package a deal somehow to get both of these guys, or at least one of them. But this is a shooting guard, again, 6'5", a wing guard, shooting guard in that class of 2025, Braylon Mullins. So that was a new offer and a new visit announcement in terms of no date, but he does intend to visit 8 schools. And you can have unlimited visits now if you're a player, and Arkansas being among those. Braden Burries, another 6'5" wing, strong, reminds me just a little bit of maybe not as good of a playmaker, and a little bit smaller, but going back to Cade Cunningham, just sort of a jack of all trades, Army Swiss knife type of player, strong, athletic, but he's a top 15 rated 5-star in the class of 2025, playing for 17 and under, strive for greatness. Arkansas's keeping an eye on him. Pay attention to that one. See if Arkansas gets a visit out of Braden Burries, but a really good player. Got a chance to watch him on NBA TV. Has provided coverage this week of the in-between games and Peach Jam weekday games in between the live periods where coaches weren't there. Very impressed with him. Had a game-winning dunk going mano-a-mano, driving down the pipe. So Braden Burries, another player that we haven't talked really about to keep an eye on that Arkansas may be recruiting in that 2025 class. And it's a top rated 5-star, right in the wheelhouse of John Calipari. All right, I'm kind of glancing. I had to write down stuff this time. A lot of times I memorize it. I have a lot of this memorized. I want to make sure I don't miss any of it, though, because it's easy to do that when you've got so many names to go through. Some more names to keep an eye on. People ask me about, or I see different things out there on social media. Jeremy Fear is another 5-star, top 10 to 15 rated player in the 2025 class. Considering reclassifying to 2024, another guard, about a combo guard, 6'3"ish, had been committed to Illinois and backed out of that, decommitted, and listed Arkansas among the schools that may be interested. Not a lot of traction there in terms of any real updates other than to bring the name and mention it as something that may be out there. Jasper Johnson, another top 25 guy, borderline 5-star out of the state of Kentucky, another guard that's a big time recruit out of that state. Arkansas, he may look to play out of state, Alabama and some other schools, North Carolina. It's not a given that Kentucky or Louisville are going to land him, thought maybe Kentucky would have the inside track there. Maybe not. Maybe not. But he's also considering visiting Arkansas. He told me months ago that he might visit Arkansas, and that talking point has come back out again. I mentioned Cortland Mulgrew with Team Thad. He's been talking about, just jumping back to him, maybe visiting in August. Been talking with Chuck Martin about that. Let's see what happens with Acuff, similar size and position there. And then when you look at some of the top, rated guys that Arkansas has really made priorities out of, that Calipari made most of their games last weekend, you're going to see that again this weekend. The number one player in class of 2025, AJ DeBonsa, a 6'9" combo forward that plays for the Oakland Soldiers, 17 and under. Another one of the favorites at Peach Jam once they get into tournament play. But again, class of 2025, number one overall player, 5-star. Calipari, hot and heavy in that, trying to get him to visit. I think DeBonsa told me when I interviewed him back in May in Kansas City that he would like to visit Arkansas. And so there's a possibility that happens. There's some saber rattling lately from BYU. He's transferred from Prolific Prep in California to play at a new prep school in Utah. BYU is going to get a visit. I think he's already taken an unofficial visit there. UConn's been in the picture. There's some other schools, obviously, for DeBonsa, but I think Arkansas may be in a great position to get a visit out of him at minimum. He's from the East Coast, by the way. I think he's from Connecticut, or I think he's from the state of Connecticut. But DeBonsa is a fantastic prospect when you're the number one rated guy at 6'9" and versatile. I watched him play in Kansas City multiple times. Obviously, so much to like about his game, and his teammate over there with the Oakland Soldiers, his class of 2026, number one overall prospect, Teron Stokes, at 6'7" forward, a very versatile player in his own right, obviously a 5-star. So you've got the two number one rated players in 25-26 teaming up on the Oakland Soldiers, and Stokes recently put out a list of some of the top schools. I think 7 or 8 teams, and Arkansas was among those. So Arkansas's made a priority out of both of these guys. I mentioned Cameron Boozer, the number 2 rated player in that class. Some argue the number 1 player. 6'9" forward, plays for Knight Riders as elite, along with Caleb Wilson, another player Arkansas is prioritizing, and to some degree his twin brother, Caden Boozer, a lead guard, a 6'4" lead guard, another top 25 player. Both of those guys, in addition to DeBonsa, look destined, seems obvious to say, for the McDonald's All-American game later on. And then you've got Koa Pete, who continues a national top 10 rated 5-star, not playing in this event, played on Adidas 3SSB, a powerful 6'8" forward, reminds me somewhat of Corliss Williamson back in the day, that sort of positional strength and size, and a high IQ guy for sort of a physically playing type guy. But Koa Pete's another player that continues to mention Arkansas and the potential or even likelihood for a visit. Nate Ament, another top 10 rated 5-star, also plays on the Adidas circuit, and he's out of Virginia. 6'9", very versatile forward, stretch 4, can really shoot the ball a lot, just a myriad of skills out on the perimeter for a 6'9" guy with great length. He continues to mention Arkansas. And talking about his top 10 schools, Arkansas's in there. He told me back when I interviewed him back in May on the Adidas 3SS, the first live eval period in the entire spring, first time Calipari got out on the road as Arkansas's head coach back in mid-May, he told me that he'd like to visit Arkansas. All right, so I've run down a lot of the top 10 5-star names here that are maybe still very much on the radar until they're not. And some of these players, even recently, are continuing to mention Arkansas. So you got to figure if Arkansas is in the leader, on the leader, in the clubhouse as the leader, and probably with a private commit at this point from Darius Acuff Jr., that may be the first of several 5-stars that fall off the board. Calipari's talked about limiting his targeted high school recruits to 3 or 4, down from traditionally what he does 6 or 7. I don't know if he can get more than 4 or more of some of these players whose names I've mentioned. I think he'll exceed that number. Let's see what plays out there. But some of these guys, I consider the 2025 and 2026 classes to be really, really good, deep, really good at the top, and probably better even than some good classes that we've just recently seen in 24 and 23. I think 22 is one of those really strong classes, but the two after that, I think 25 and 26 are superior to 24 and 23. which would be enough motivation if you could get enough of those guys near the top of that group, top 25-ish top guys, maybe sprinkle in a top 50 guy to maybe exceed 3 or 4. Again, Calipari so far has stuck to it. If you look at Arkansas's current roster, we're going to dip into that in a little bit later, just to review some stuff mostly that we've already talked about. He's got more than 3 high school players. He brought in 3 that were committed to him at Kentucky, 5-star guys. The rest have been outside that top 9, and they're not really. When you talk about high school recruiting, he's talking about his top level guys he's going to be counting on out of the gates, drilling that down from half his roster to 3 or 4. And so that's what you see. It's about a third. When you look at the guys he's going to be counting on, it's only 1/3 of that top 9. So the others that he's added are part of that 10 through, well, what are 14 players now? Someone's going to have to be a true walk on there. We talked about that recently. We'll get into that a little bit. But the idea here is just jumping back into it. I think he might exceed it if he could get enough of these names that I just went through. He's not going to get half of them, but if he could, he probably would take that. So always bear in mind, if you can get guys that are projected as one and dones, you're going to grab those. And you're not going to stop until you got them all if you can get them. All right, moving along here, class of 2026 real quick. I mentioned Terrence Stokes that plays for the Oakland Soldiers. J.J. Andrews could be the next guy out of Arkansas to get an offer soon. We'll see. With 6'6" wing, Little Rock Christian Academy. He also the second July live eval period. He plays today, so Arkansas coaches will have a chance to potentially see him go. With the 16 under Bradville Elite, Calipari's been courtside for several of his games going back to May in that live eval period in Indianapolis when the Nike circuit was there. And so it very well could be that he's the next in line. Ranked 15th in the country, a 5-star by ESPN in the class of 2026. Brandon McCoy Jr., ranked either 1 or 2nd in that class, has also been a major Arkansas target, and he recently mentioned Arkansas among the top schools in line for him. Jacob Lanier, class of 2026, national top 25 according to On3 Sports, so a high-level 4-star. Also from Central Arkansas, played at Maumelle last year. Will play at Arizona Compass, one of those independent national schools next season as a junior. But another player that Calipari put eyes on last weekend. So we'll see if he, certainly Arkansas's other assistants in combination with Calipari are going to make the rounds to see these players. Aiden Chronister, another in-state kid, will play at Sunrise Christian Academy, 6'7" wing out of Rogers. Calipari watched him play last week on the 11th. I think that was a Thursday in Phoenix. So he's another guy to keep an eye on in 26. And then another player out of Kentucky, out of the 2026 class, Tay Kenny, a 6-foot guard out of Newport, Kentucky, reported an Arkansas offer last week after talking to John Calipari. So another player that's talking Arkansas offer, and he's a national top 30 rated 4-star in that class. All right, one name I intentionally left off, and I wanted to save for last here, and jump in here because it's very interesting. Malik Thomas, the class of 2025 5-star that everybody thought's UConn bound, and maybe that's the case, is recently opened back up, talking to Jamie Shaw, and he's talking about still taking a visit to Arkansas and some other schools and doing it in the fall, doing it when he can go and there's activity on campus. Again, maybe it's football season, September or October, so you get opportunities maybe to go and visit. But he's got Arkansas on a short list of schools that he still intends to visit. We'll see what that really means. Is he going to follow through on that? Remember the reporting I gave when he didn't cancel, but he called it postponing, and would have to back in June before getting into July, which is strictly a dead period when it comes the entire month when it came to on-campus visits. He backed out of that, but he told me that he was looking at different dates later on and wasn't sure yet when. Well, he's talking again about taking visits. So we'll see if it's one of those things where he actually does that. I mean, maybe take him at his word that he will. Again, it's thought that UConn's the front runner here and the heavy favorite, and that may not change. He may want to just take other visits. How could that impact an Acuff Jr.? Remember, Darren Peterson, another top 5 rated 5-star. Malik Thomas, top 10 in that same class. All backcourt players here. But Peterson, it's thought that he's probably Kansas bound, and he's actually talking about taking visits in August. And it was thought he was going to visit Ohio State in early August, and now it looks like he's got a visit set to Southern Cal, USC on August 1st. So we'll see if Acuff waits and watches and sees what happens and what dominoes play out. I'm told Arkansas is his leader regardless, but remember, NIL impacts everything. And if the pieces are moving around and they're really unsettled, it may cause a player to pause and see if there's any way they can leverage something. That can be tricky because Calipari's going to have other options. So I'm not saying that's happening with Acuff. I'm just saying let's keep an eye on some of these things that are happening because it was kind of looking at Acuff slotting to Arkansas, Peterson to Kansas, and Malik Thomas to UConn. It may still play out that way. But if guys are still taking visits, would that cause an Acuff? Which I don't think it will, but it's a potential that could happen. I mean, these top level 5 stars, weird stuff happens. What you think you know can change. Would he pause? Again, he's talking about now on the record with Joe Tipton, I believe, that he's going to make an announcement after Peach Jam. It's what I told you days and weeks ago. That came out after I reported that, but it's out there. Multiple are now talking about this announcement's coming up. So we'll see on Acuff. I think Arkansas is in great shape there. Okay, we're getting out of the high school part. That was going to be the bulk of it anyway in the high school recruiting and the live eval period this weekend. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Friday morning, right at 10 a.m. here Central Time. We're 26 minutes in here. I'm going to jump into the portal. Let's get back into the portal. Arkansas's roster. We've talked so much about after you got to your top 9 guys, the 5 additions. You're up to 14 players. You can have only 13 on athletic scholarship. And the last time we were on, I was like, this could be, don't let this fool you. It's obvious one of those players has to be a traditional walk-on. If you got 14 and you can only have 13 scholarships, I said, but I believe Arkansas is going to have 2 traditional walk-ons among these 14, which means only 12 on athletic scholarship. And it means that you'd have another athletic scholarship to give. I mentioned that the last time we were on last week. Well, a name in the portal has popped up, David Diggy Coit. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Coit. I hope that's correct. A 5'11" guard out of Northern Illinois, averaging only 21 points per game. Just a volume scorer and shooter, takes a lot of threes. But he's mentioned the NCAA just granted him a waiver to grant him immediate eligibility next season, and he's in the transfer portal. But already the 3 schools being mentioned are Arkansas, Villanova, and Texas A&M. So we'll see how serious Arkansas is. Arkansas is backcourt loaded. I think it's a thin front line when you look at numbers. And in some ways, it's not the most physical of front lines. I guess we'll see how serious, if Arkansas has real serious interest here. But those are the 3 school names that have come up. And reporting that came out yesterday, and I believe it was John Rothstein with CBS Sports, college basketball analyst for years over there, that put this out. So it's worth mentioning, if you went after another guard, based on my theory of the new players, of the 5 additional players, let's go through the next real quick. Jaden Caroletwa, Melo Sanchez, Aiden Kelly, Casimir Chavis, and then Kareem Watkins. Well, Watkins is the brother of DJ Wagner. He's been a walk-on the last 4 years at Kentucky. Total in 4 seasons, played in 20 games, a total of 29 minutes. To me, he's an obvious traditional walk-on. Then you've got 13 other guys. And I think Aiden Kelly potentially is the name I put out there, 6'1" guard out of Mississippi. To me, he's probably another guy that will be a traditional walk-on. So again, that opens up a scholarship. Is Arkansas really interested in Diggy Coit to add another guard into the mix? I mean, all 5 of the additional players are either wings or guards. And then when you look at the top 9 players, really only 3 of those are true frontline guys. And I guess you could say Adu Thero at 6'8", maybe still growing, is that combo 3-4 can help you on your front line. And maybe, based on the numbers, the way they are and the way the roster looks right now, it seems kind of obvious to me he's going to have to play on the front line. And it may take up the bulk of his minutes, even though I think he's going to start at the 3 with Trevor Brazile and Jonas Adair, who I think will be in the starting lineup, along with Nelly Davis and DJ Wagner. That's my first projected starting 5. Either way, Arkansas, to me, still seems thin on the front line. I thought maybe Calipari would work this out to have of these extra 5 players to be traditional walk-ons, leave open their scholarship, and maybe before school starts in the fall in September, you've still got enough time to maybe add another frontline piece. So it's interesting to see that Arkansas has been in contact with a 5'11 guard. We'll see what to make of that. I'm really not sure at this point how serious that is, but I do think it's worth mentioning. All right, let's jump real quick to staff stuff. We've been talking about Ronnie Bird Jr. having going to be someone who's being retained. I've been talking about it for months on these segments. In fact, that was reported officially, formally, publicly, a release from the university. And if you went to the staff directory on the website, even since Calipari's been at Arkansas in early April, Brewer's been listed as an assistant coach recruiting coordinator, which was his previous title. And they've continued to update that. They had continued to update the staff directory with the new hires as they were trickled slowly out and formally announced. And Brewer's name never changed, or his title never changed. It just stayed static. But I kept speculating because I knew that wasn't that he had not been given an official title yet. And I mentioned that on several of these segments. I said it's going to come down to him and Tyler Eulis, the former Kentucky guard, who was a student assistant at Kentucky the last 2 years under Calipari. Because we know, even though it hasn't been formally announced, Calipari talked about him following over to Arkansas a couple of months ago, actually, maybe back in May when he was talking about that. But I'd been told Eulis is finishing up coursework so that he can become, get some higher level position at Arkansas. Well, Brewer last week, Ronnie Bird Jr. was announced in a support staff role, director of student athlete development. So that answers everything. Tyler Eulis will be Arkansas's 5th assistant coach, but nothing formal on that. Nothing in universities announced. It's just that's where it's headed. So Tyler Eulis may be still finishing up coursework through the summer. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know when that will be completed. The other announcement, Riley Hall, who's been also extended support staff over the years, starting in the Mike Anderson era, then under all 5 seasons under Eric Patrick Musselman, EPM, and now transitioning to John Calipari. He's also being retained, and he will be director of operations. So you have 2 previous staff members that are being retained. We'll see if there's anything else in the fold. I think most of it's been announced. There's always been that flirtation. Is there some role that a Joe Johnson can have? I wouldn't 100% close that out, but we're probably getting close to 99% that may not happen. But who knows? I'll leave it open as a possibility for some kind of a role. And if not now, maybe down the road. Just real quick on the scheduling thing update that I gave last week when I reported that Arkansas playing Illinois on Thanksgiving Day, November 28th in Kansas City, was actually going to be part of a 4-team MTE, a multi-team event, 4 teams, Arkansas, Illinois as the capper. That'll be a nationally televised game during Feast Week, reportedly by CBS. And as a lead up to that, in this 4-team MTE, Arkansas and Illinois will both play the Little Rock Trojans, in-state D1 school. Do I know I got a question here. Do I know if Arkansas is going to let media into practice? That has been the practice going all the way back. I mean, under Musselman, we got more extended time in practice, or they showed us more in the time, the 30-minute window. In the prior regime, Mike Anderson, I think during the 30-minute window, what we really saw was 3-man weave. They didn't show us anything. Under Musselman, we got to actually see a bit of live scrimmaging, more precise drill work, really showing on offense and defense some of the stuff they were working on. Again, under Mike Anderson, you didn't get to see much, but under every year, there's been a media opportunity, at least one. Under Musselman, some years you got more than one. But who knows what John Calipari is going to do, but I expect the media will have an opportunity. Usually those things happen in October, prior to leading up to the exhibition part of the season when you have the 2 exhibition games, or however Calipari is going to do that now. So we'll see. Maybe there's something that can be done in the summer. I don't know. There's no scuttlebutt or rumor mill. But getting back to the schedule, again, Little Rock, Maryland, Eastern Shore, Arkansas, and Illinois would host both of those teams on campus games as part of this MTE. I don't have a name for it. It'll have some kind of a name. And again, the big matchup being the culmination of this, that'll be nationally televised, but it's not a tournament. It's just an opportunity to get you to 13 non-conference games. You get one event that allows you to play 3 games. Arkansas and Illinois would both host Little Rock, in-state D1 school, and Maryland Eastern Shore that plays in the MEAC, another Division I school. Those games presumably would be in November as a lead up to that November 28th game between Arkansas and Illinois. Little Rock would also host Maryland Eastern Shore, and Maryland Eastern Shore would play 3 road games against that field. Now, we've already talked about this. I mentioned that all the I's weren't dotted and the T's weren't crossed, but it looks like it's going to happen. I don't know that it's been finalized, other than I've got a report that it's all systems go. It doesn't look like there's going to be any wrinkles in this or that it's going to blow up. It should be that field. But until all the I's are dotted and T's crossed and all the paperwork's in, potentially something could happen and some of those teams are swapped out. It's possible, looking less and less likely that's going to happen. That was really the case last time, but I did get an update and I wanted to bring it, even though it's not much of an update. It looks like that's going to be done soon, and we'll see. I continue to see a lot of high major schools see their non-conference schedules released and announced. Arkansas is not one of them yet, and I wouldn't say most are out yet, but a good number of them have come out. So basically, we're in wait and see mode on Arkansas's non-conference schedule, and when that actually formally gets announced, we know of 7 games. I mentioned 3 of them. All those would be those are the November games that we know of. Then you get in December in order. Miami on the road again in the ACC SEC Challenge on December 3rd, December 10th or 11th, not sure the exact date yet. Jimmy V Classic against Michigan. That'll be ESPN and family of networks. Likely the mother channel there, ESPN. And then Arkansas's got UCA, Central Arkansas, in-state D1 school in the North Little Rock game in Sims Bank Arena. Traditionally, those are played on holiday break after finals, so usually mid to late December, a date somewhere between mid-December and around the early 20s, somewhere in there. Usually it's usually a Friday or Saturday game. I think it's usually a Saturday game, so it's on the weekend typically. And then Oakland, Arkansas hosting Oakland, the team that upset Kentucky in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Last year, Arkansas is expected to host Oakland on December 30th at Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville. So adding up all those games, and Little Rock and Maryland Eastern Shore, again, those would be Bud Walton Arena games. It's a total of 7. You get 13 non-conference games. And I mentioned this. I'm still thinking there's a possibility Arkansas will have some kind of a game against, a made-for-TV kind of a game during the middle of conference play. So maybe January or February. Calipari did that last year when Kentucky played Gonzaga. And so Arkansas is supposedly going to have a Dallas game against an opponent. If it's SMU, that's a road game. If it's not SMU, anybody else in the country, it sets it up for potential. It would obviously be a neutral site game, but again, it sets it up for one of those marquee kind of matchup games. I don't think Arkansas is going in Dallas to play, some no-name school that they could host at home. All right, so we've kind of gotten through some staff and schedule stuff. Most of it's regurgitating talking points, but I wanted to cover a little bit of it. I did have a slight update on the Little Rock, Maryland Eastern Shore thing. And the staff. I mean, it's not shocking. It's no surprise that staff news, other than now we have a formal title for Ronnie Bird Jr. and it telegraphs the fact that Tyler Eulis will in fact be that 5th assistant. Remember, Brad Calipari is an assistant coach under his dad, John Calipari. Brad was on the road recruiting last week. Was at the Adidas 3SSB event. Was sat by his dad in one of those games up there. I think it was the 17U Indiana Elite game was one of those that they watched with Malachi Marino and Braylon Mullins. And then you've obviously got Kenny Payne as associate coach, Chin Coleman also an associate coach, and Chuck Martin assistant coach. Practice clips. I wanted to talk about this the last time we were on, and I ran short on time. We're almost at 40 minutes, by the way. So we're doing pretty good here. But going through some of the practice clips last week, one of the ones that stood out to me that we didn't talk about was a clip showing some defensive breakdown drills. And I really liked that because I started really noticing, big Z's, Zvonimir Ivisic, 7'2" center. They were listing him at 7'2". We originally told 7'1". Now on the roster, they've got him listed at 7'2". He looks like he's put on some good weight. He looks sturdier to me. than he did as a freshman. Well, that happens a lot, right? Players mature physically, they get in the weight and training program. So that's not unusual necessarily, but some guys don't always put on weight quickly or transform as quickly. And I think there's some idea maybe that Visich has put on at least 5 pounds of good muscle. He looks sturdier to me. Every time I see a dude Thero, I'm thinking this is a man child. I mean, he's started his college career what 6'4", 6'5", has grown. Last season he was listed at 6'7" or 6'8". Now they're saying he's a legit 6'8", maybe headed to 6'9", plus wingspan, but he is thick, man. He is solidly built uh, in a good way. I mean, he looks like a machine, a transformer, but another guy that I think can bring physicality, and he may be the most physical guy on the front line when it comes to front line minutes. We'll see, but if Big Z's packing on some weight, looking at a Duke Thero breaking down in those defensive drills, and of course Nelly Davis in the backcourt at 6'4", he's solidly built. He's not a rail thin guy. He's solid. And even DJ Wagner, I think, can play a physical brand at your combo guard, at your lead guard spot, relative to that position. So I think there is some physicality at certain places, and maybe some guys who you wouldn't think is physical, like Big Z, maybe adding a little element of some of that, getting stronger anyway. So that because to me, physicality was going to be a concern. Athleticism, length, positional size, skill levels, those are not as much a concern. Maybe 3-point shooting. The other part was physicality on the front line. But looking up and down the lineup, guys that I think are going to factor into the main part of the rotation, probably half of those guys are close to it. Of those top 9 are guys that can hold up and maybe bring a physical presence. And anytime you watch defense and defensive drills, you're kind of paying attention to some of that stuff, which I was. So one of those clips that came out, I retweeted it with comments about each of those guys and how Arkansas, uh, maybe up to more physical challenges than I initially thought, just looking at the makeup of that top 9. Other video clips that came out the other day, Billy Richmond, the true freshman. Remember, he was graduating when Arkansas first, back in earlier this month, when Arkansas first started releasing some of these practice highlight videos. He was gone. And so he was not in some of those. And then we've seen some of the highlight stuff that's come out recently. There's been more of a flood of it, but the most recent one I've seen had him in it. And it showed him with a pull up. He's a lefty, a pull up mid range shot. So he can get into the rim. And so these are the kind of plays when I watched him play in high school. I watched him in some of the postseason All Star events, like the Jordan Brand Classic. Those are the things that are familiar to me about his game. He loves to get to the mid range. He loves getting all the way to the rim. He is a vicious dunker and slasher, but he likes to drive into pull up. 3-point shooting is not his forte, and it doesn't mean that it can't be, and he won't develop that. But when he looked at the highlight clip, it represented what what my, I guess, preconceived notions are coming into his college career, what he brings to the table. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, lefty that likes to get to those mid-range pull-up shots. He stuck one of those in the highlight that came out. And look, this is a guy, so much is talked about Carter Knox and Boogie Flam because they were McDonald's All-Americans, both in several mock drafts projected in 2025 as one and done first round type kind of guys, first round draft picks. Not as much Billy Richmond, but here's a guy that could really help Arkansas, whether he is a one and done or not. And the thought is maybe it's more on the defensive end and being a guy that on the wing there playing the 3. We'll see how much he's on the floor uh, with other, with a Knox and or a Duthero. I think he's probably more likely to slot in as a 3, but maybe there's an opportunity for him to get out there on the 2 level. I'm not sure enough about his handles just yet to think he could help you at the lead guard spot. But it was good to see some Billy Richmond. Now he's listed when he came in, he was listed at 6'6". On the roster, I saw that he's been, I won't say downgraded, but they've got him listed at 6'5". But this guy's athletic. He's got really good length, and he is explosive. So, at 6'5", some of his physical attributes, maybe he plays a little bigger than that. Again, I think he slots on the wing. And really, some of the practice clips, the other thing is, we see some cut-ups of John Calipari talking to the team, instruction. We used to see that with Eric Patrick Musselman in the cut-ups that came out, the video clips, and we're seeing some of that with Calipari. And it's stuff I've seen of him before at other places. Whenever you saw him featured during a practice and talking, you'd see some of that stuff at times. And so he's Cal. Like we always talk about him being the greatest recruiter of all time. He's one of the best on-court coaches of all time. And I know people are looking at the recency of non-success in the NCAA tournament. I wouldn't write it off yet. I know I repeat myself on this stuff. I think he feels like he's got more to prove. And when you look at these practice clips and things he does, I've always looked at his process and been impressed with it. And the on-court stuff is among, to me, his list of strengths, and I think it's still a strength. And we're going to jump into talking about pro hogs here, but I think it's important when you put out these practice clips not to just to see player highlights. I think you need to see the coaching staff and the head of and that starts at the top, John Calipari. You need to hear their voice, see them in action as well. So I think once it was a slow point, it was a slow wait getting to the official releases of some of the stuff, and we've gotten quite a good amount of stuff in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm glad to see that. I think we're going to get more of it. Someone commented on that. I can't wait till media is invited to practice. You know me, I'm a basketball junkie. I need to get courtside. All right, pro hogs. Let's jump into summer league action. The two players that have stood out the most to me, I guess three. Really, it's three now when you add the Las Vegas part of it in. Are Ricky Council IV, Mason Jones, and Nick Smith Jr. Nick Smith Jr., we'll start with him, has been outstanding in terms of production, overall production, and floor game in Las Vegas. He had a really rough time in the California Classic. Overall shooting, his overall shooting's not been great in Las Vegas, but his three-point shooting's been solid, over 36%. Remember, he led last season all NBA rookies in three-point field goal percentage in the regular season, played 51 games, over 125 attempts, shooting better than 43%. So it's not quite there. But it's a new coaching staff, new system, and he's not getting the benefit of playing with other good pro level guys yet. A lot of these guys are trying to figure out whether or not they can play at the NBA level. And so that's part of what the summer league thing is. But look, he's averaging nearly 6 rebounds per game. That's been consistent throughout. Over nearly 3.5 assists per game, and over nearly 2 steals per game. So he's doing other stuff. His defense has gotten better. He looks stronger. Nick Smith Jr. But Mason, but going back to Ricky Council IV, man, this guy's averaging nearly 19 points per game. Nick Smith Jr. is averaging 19. Just under that is Ricky Council IV. His three-point shooting's improved. His defense has improved. And he is still a high-generating free throw attempts guy because of his athleticism, his physicality, and his willingness to crash and slash and attack and challenge players getting to the rim. He initiates contact and he challenges game officials to blow the whistle, and he gets a lot of calls, shooting a lot of free throws. He shoots at a high percentage there. He's a better rebounder than he was in college. He has elevated his game. He's taken the game seriously. I think really for the first time, I looked at his talent and some of the stuff he did at Arkansas, and it was eye-opening, but I thought he took a lot of time off on the defensive end. Very inconsistent rebounder. And I think he's really getting his arms fully wrapped around what it's going to take to be a pro and play and stick in the NBA. He started showing that last year as a rookie after going undrafted on a two-way deal, and he ends up earning a 4-year deal that's really was like a second round. If had he been drafted in the second round and gotten some guaranteed money in there. But man, he's really looked good in summer league. I think he's somebody that's going to be able to help an NBA team if he sticks with Philadelphia, continue to help. He had actually some spot rotation minutes last year. Philadelphia has made some offseason moves where it might be hard for Council to expect to crack a rotation this upcoming season, but he's on a path. He's on a path of development, improvement, and he's going to get some opportunities with the way that injuries are in the league, 82-game season and other things. He's going to maybe get some more opportunities again in his second season, but I think he's proven himself playing in summer league. Summer league you have to take with a grain of salt. It's not the same as the NBA. It's just not on that level. And guys that show out and do well don't always translate during the upcoming regular season. And you're always looking for guys that are not doing well. Sometimes that's a problem. But Ricky Council IV does not have that issue. Mason Jones, 26-year-old, will be a fifth-year pro, mostly on two-way deals. Has played, under, I think, somewhere between 40 and 50 NBA games in total over his previous 4 seasons, has lost 45 pounds. He looks incredible and he's playing great. He's quicker. He's playing a more team-oriented game. An alpha scorer, he's had to tamp that down a little bit and be a lead guard at 6'5", and he's a guy that can set up teammates. He's had 2 double doubles, nearly 3, actually nearly 4. Yesterday he had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, not far from a triple double. But he's had several double doubles and shot the ball really well for the most part. I think he had an off night shooting from 3, had an offer, but for the most part, it's been really good. He's been really good in the G League, shooting in the mid to high 40s and 3-point shooting in the G League. The NBA is a different animal, but he's trying to prove that he can consistently play and be counted on and relied upon. He had to get in shape. It's made him a better defender. That's always been an issue for him as well. So we'll see. We'll see if he gets an opportunity to be more than a two-way player at some point. He's got to consistently and continue to prove in these opportunities, not only in Summer League, but whatever G League basketball he plays. He's with the Sacramento Kings organization, a team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago, just missed them, was in the play-in setup this past year. But a Kings team, again, it's hard to crack a rotation on a really good team or a playoff caliber type of team. But we'll see what Mason Jones does. And remember, all it takes, you're also auditioning for the other 29 teams, especially when you're on a two-way deal. Someone else can pick you up and get you on a contract. So it's not just a matter of impressing the team you're on, but everybody else. And so Mason Jones, I think, has helped himself. Certainly being in shape goes a long way to that. He's had he had a bad turnover game. I think it was last night, 7. Those are the things that hurt him. So he's going to have to clean it up and then finish out Summer League on a strong note, but he's been really, really good for most of it. So I don't want to take away from that. But those 3 guys, Mason Jones, Ricky Council IV, Nick Smith Jr. have stood out to me the most. Anthony Black had a good opening game, I think a 20-point game. And then he had another game, statistically, production-wise. He always stuffs a stat sheet. He's going to give you rebounds, assists, steals. He does a lot of stuff on the court, but they've shut him down due to an ankle injury. So I don't know if we'll see him again. He hasn't played the last 2 games, so it's really hard to judge his Summer League. Now, look, he started nearly half the games he played in last year as a rookie with the Orlando Magic, a playoff team, by the way, after being drafted 6th overall in the lottery. Started nearly half the game. So he had rotation roles. If you're starting, you obviously are in there. A backcourt that's had a lot of injuries over the years, and certainly last year that was the case. So he got opportunities. We didn't see a lot of him in Summer League. Can't really judge it. Other players, Arkansas, Jordan Walsh has not had the Summer League I was hoping he'd have to this point. He's another guy that he's defensively active, loose balls defensively. So he'll do some good things. I think offensively he's been struggling. He's been struggling with his shot. Other players that have appeared, pro Hogs that have made it to games. Otis Toney with the Denver Nuggets got a start. He's been getting minutes. He's been getting anywhere from 15 to 25-ish minutes in certain games. Another guy that's not really offensively oriented, but he gets on the glass at 6'4", 6'5". He's a little undersized to be a 3, I think, without having a knockdown 3-point shot, but he's getting opportunities. Jimmy Witt Jr. has been on what was supposed to be on the Golden State Warriors. He's on their Las Vegas Summer League roster, and I think he appeared briefly, at least one game that I saw, played 2 or 3 minutes. I need to go back and look at some of the box scores on him. Stanley Amudi, who just recently signed a 2-way deal with the Milwaukee Bucks, he may be hurt. I need to go back and look into that, but he has not played with the Bucks in Las Vegas Summer League, so he's not made any appearances or been on their Summer League roster. But he did recently agree to a 2-way deal with the Bucks organization. So we've kind of rolled through really the main names in Summer League. It wraps up here in just a few days on the 22nd. So I think Monday's the last day. Most of these players are going to have at least one more game, and potentially more than that if they qualified for the Final Four. I'm not sure any of the Pro Hogs did or have to this point. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. 54 minutes in. Not a lot of breaking news today. I wanted to cover a lot of that. a lot of the stuff that's going on with especially with the live eval, being the final weekend, and then you're really going to start getting into more visit news, more offers. We'll see what other offers pour out, what in-state kids get offers, maybe at JJ Andrews. I'm shocked that Arkansas is talking to a player out of the portal, but maybe I shouldn't be. This is Eric Patrick Melsman, EPM kind of stuff, right? His roster's overloaded and he's still making contacts to portal players as you roll into August or about to. So that when I saw this news on Diggy Coit hearing from Arkansas, the 5'11 guard out of Northern Illinois, I was like, man, we thought it'd grinded down to nothing and the roster was complete, but maybe it's not. And then some of the other stuff, again, we'll jump back on if there's something breaking that we need to do. If it's today, we'll do it. But now we're going to be just short of an hour. I want to thank you one more time for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't done that already. And until next time, I'll see you then.